Good morning and welcome to Making Sense of It. Have you ever wondered why you do what you do? Well, this program is our gift to you from the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory. And each week we have a certified member tell us about how they use some of the concepts of Dr. Glasser and what amazing results it brings forth. And we're here to kind of fill in the gaps so that you that are new to choice theory could be a little bit more familiar with it and how it works smoothly. Our speaker today is James Mishler. He is with the Quality Schools, as an expert with Quality Schools, and is going to be sharing with us today. Welcome to everyone. Welcome, James. Good to have you with us.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Just a quick biographical note. I'm Jim Mishler, obviously. I live up in Northern Michigan, and I've been involved with the Institute since 76, off and on, 1976, that is. Currently, I've been a board member and several other things. Currently, I'm a faculty member and chairperson of the Quality School Committee. So with that, let's me share. I have a PowerPoint. I had a PowerPoint. Where did it go? There it is. And we want to run that from the beginning. Oops, slideshow beginning. Okay, there we go. I'll kid Sharon, who's online with us a little bit. This PowerPoint is significantly shorter than the ones we do for our quality school forums by about 40 slides. Okay, so my title this month or this week is Winning and Losing, Reframing Your Mindset with Choice Theory Perspectives. This is part one. When I offered and volunteered to do this presentation, Mona asked if I would stretch it into two pieces. So this is part one. So an opening thought, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. And it's a given that we don't always get our way. And there are times when you must be precisely accurate and it matters. But most of the time, missing the mark doesn't really matter. And there's always room for improvement. And then, because this is choice theory axiom number one is the only person's behavior you can control is your own. So we're going to be kind of focusing on that. It's a little bit of a mindset sort of a thing. And we're going to be talking about changing your mindset away from our external control world. So with that, the first part of this is going to be winning and losing, reframing who we are and what we're doing, and going away from this binary either or choice. Either you win or you lose. Either you have it or you don't. And we're trying to get away from that and think of it in a different way. That's part one. Part two, which will be next week, I'll talk about presenting some ways to actually reframe winning and losing in your own personal life. So let's consider some rhetorical questions. And as I consider these, I want to keep in mind a couple of quotes. I'm an avid football fan, and my beloved Detroit Lions have never won a national. The last time the Detroit Lions won a national championship was 1957. And the quarterback at the time was a character by the name of Bobby Lane, who reportedly said, "I've never lost a game. I just ran out of time occasionally." That's a mindset, okay? And then John Gagliardi, it's another good quote. I like this one. John Gagliardi is the winningest coach in college football. He was a Division III coach, which is small schools, but he's won more championships, more conference titles, more games than any other existing coach in all of college football. And he's a very interesting guy. He was doing choice theory sorts of things before choice theory was even around. So at any rate, one of his quotes is, "The great ones in every area, in anything, football, employees, anybody, are guys who are able to accept and bounce back from bad news." and from bad breaks. So we're talking about mindset, we're talking about being flexible, and we're talking a little bit about grit. So I'm going to put a few rhetorical questions up here. I'm not going to read them. I'm just going to bring them up one at a time. I want you to reflect on them and think about them for a second, and then we will get into the meat of the presentation. So those are just some rhetorical questions. They are a lot, and you're going to hear me say the word mindset a lot the next few minutes. And people who are reorganizing their behavior so they can get what they want. Our external control world would have us believe that winning and losing is everything. And in this presentation, we're going to find out a little bit about it's not always about winning and losing. So here we go. So if it's not winning and losing, what should it be? Okay, winning and losing is about the journey. It's about the continuous journey of self-improvement based on our own self-evaluations and our own efforts at improvement. This is part of a journey. This part of the journey requires us to rethink what it means to be a winner or a loser. So as I said, I'm with the Glasser Quality School Committee, and we've done a couple of presentations here in the last couple of months over winning and losing and self-evaluation. And we've had some very interesting discussions and some thoughts about winning and losing. So here's what the committee thinks is winning and losing. Winning equals success equals achieving one's quality world picture, finding ways to have our needs satisfied effectively. Okay, that's one way we think about it. Not winning, but losing means that we're accessing strategies for improvement and change using the questioning process, quality world pictures, changing our behaviors, changing plans, changing self-evaluations. And losing equals failure, not achieving one's quality world pictures, not finding ways to have our needs met effectively. So we're not really going to pay much attention to that last one because we want to get our needs met and we want to be able to feel satisfied. So we have a couple more definitions here that the Quality School Committee came up with. Winners can be thought of as effectively self-evaluating to achieve their quality world pictures in a healthy way. Losers can be thought of as not effectively self-evaluating and to improve, work, or achieve quality world pictures in a healthy way. So the Quality School Committee kind of came up with the idea that winning and losing or losing and winning is a journey. It's not an either or thing. And as we try to change our mindset about how all of this works, we have to realize that we're on a journey. This is not a one-stop shop. If I take this pill, if I do this activity, I'll go from being a winner or a loser to a winner. That's not the case. And we really, if we delve deep into winning and losing, we find out that winners lose more often than they win. And yet we look at them and say, hey, they're really successful. And the difference is that they keep trying. They have resilience and grit. So with that, we at the Quality School Committee put up this particular chart that I'm going to show you. This kind of lays out the journey. And I'm going to there's two versions of the chart. There's this one, and then there'll be another one right after it that looks very similar, but there's some subtle differences. We made this chart originally when we were talking about the Quality School Committee. Originally, we started talking about winning and losing. So those people who are least effective, typically speaking, they're not making progress in any part of their life or most of their life. They keep blaming other people. They're not effectively self-evaluating what went wrong, and they're out of balance and they're not satisfying their needs. that's not effective, and it's not, for lack of a better word, I'll say that's not winning behavior. But remember, this is a journey. So this is how it looks to most of the world. If you're one of those people who buys into the external control psychology that the rest of the world believes in, then you will probably buy into blaming others and it's never your fault. So if you're starting to make some change, but you're in that zone where you're not really changing a lot, what does that look like in this journey? So generally speaking, you have unclear goals. You don't know what you want. And in choice theory, not knowing what you want is kind of a big deal. You have to figure out what you want. You're unclear about those wants. You're unwilling to engage in change. And you're still not meeting your needs. So we're moving we're getting away from some of the other things that are listed in the first one. And we're starting to focus on some other things, but we're still not where we want to be. So the next one, you're starting to change. So we call that a change zone. So you're starting to work on trial and error. You're rethinking your previous strategies. You're gaining a willingness to make changes. Now, back up in the first step there, people aren't willing to make changes. It's not my fault. I don't have to do anything. But as you progress on this continuum, on this journey, if you will, you start to realize that if I'm going to be happier, if I'm going to be, quote, a winner, then I'm going to have to make some changes. Sometimes it's small, sometimes it's large, but I'm going to have to make some changes. And I'm going to have to rethink my previous strategies. That doesn't mean necessarily in this change zone that we're actually doing all these things, but we're really starting to focus on it in a more conscious way. And as we start to focus on it in a more conscious way, we begin to experience some success in getting some of our needs or wants taken care of. So in the last part of the journey, which is really an ongoing part of the journey, it's a never-ending part. This is part of continuous improvement. It kind of goes on and on and on. And so the most effective people are focused on trying to get better. They're focused on trying to improve. If you think of that from the point of view of athletes, even when a top tier athlete loses a game or loses a competition and they're being interviewed afterwards, and I always get a chuckle of some of the interview questions that sports announcers ask, because sometimes they're kind of stupid. But that being said, one of the questions that you hear asked of somebody who just lost the game, well, how do you feel about that? Well, of course they feel bad. But a lot of times when athletes get asked that question, they don't say, well, I feel bad. They say, well, I need to focus on getting better. I didn't do as well on this today. I need to focus on getting better the next time. So the difference between being a top tier athlete who is winning and losing, really, it depends on what their mindset is. Am I losing, or did I just do some things wrong that I need to improve the next time? And if you think about baseball players, baseball is the only sport where you can be unsuccessful 75% or 70% of the time and still make a multi-million-dollar contract. Because if you're unsuccessful 70% of the time in baseball, that means you're batting 300 and you are doing really well. So baseball is about improving. So that's, I like the sports metaphors because it kind of fits in here. So winners and most effective people are focused on improvement. They have clear goals. They know what they're trying to do. They know where they're trying to move towards. They understand what their wants and needs are. Now, this is a critical question. It's going to come up the next time in the next chart again, but I want to underscore the part where we have to be aware of what our needs are. And in choice theory, we know we have 5 basic needs, and we have to know that we're trying to meet those needs all the time. And we have to be willing to make adjustments and changes. And and we're trying to balance out our needs and get them met effectively. So those are the things that was the more generic sort of chart. That was the first one that we created at the Quality School Committee. Then in an effort to, how should I say it, improve ourselves, make this chart a little more relevant to our audience, and particularly bring it home with choice theory, we took that chart and we reworked it a bit. And so now it looks like this. We have high levels of external control. So in the least effective area, we have levels, we tolerate levels of external control. We give up ourselves to the rest of the world and say, it's not my fault, it's somebody else's fault. And it looks kind of like this. We're using the 7 disconnecting deadly habits. We're evaluating others instead of ourselves. In other words, they made me do it. It was their fault. It wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. Come on. Oops, there we go. We believe in that external control to be the most effective way. So in other words, we believe that trying to control other people or being controlled is the way to go. And it's not, as we know in choice theory, it's not the way to go. Whoops, where did that come from? There we go. And we're not getting our needs satisfied. We spend all of our time blaming other people for what we're not getting. And we're not recognizing that we recognize we're not getting it, but we don't know what it is we're not getting. We're just blaming everybody else around me for not getting something. So as you start on that journey in choice theory thinking, we're going to lower the levels of external control in our life, but it's not going to be huge. It's going to be a little bit at a time. So eventually we start questioning the effectiveness of external control. We question our use of the deadly habits. You know, am I always criticizing? Am I always finding fault? Am I always blaming other people? What am I always doing? Here, self-evaluation starts to step in and bring us to start working on our mindset. You know, external control is just a mindset. And we have to get to the point where we have a different mindset. So we're questioning the effectiveness, we're questioning our use of the deadly habits, and we're starting to consider ourselves in the equation of self-evaluating when we evaluated others. Well, he did this wrong, so what did I do wrong? We're still out of balance, we're still not satisfying our needs, but at least we're starting to question where we're at. And then we move on. We're gaining some control over our lives. We're taking more, we're changing that locus of control from external to internal. So some of the things that make it look like that, we start to believe in internal control might be useful. And it's more than just useful. As we start to self-evaluate and we start to take on this role of, well, what can I control? What can I do with myself? Then we start feeling small twinges of success. We start using and carrying and connecting habits rather than trying to control people. The caring connecting habits would, have us, be more focused on other people. We're looking to make compromises. We're not finding fault, and there's 7 of them, so I'm not going to go into all of those at the moment. But anyway, they're there, and we're starting to use them, and we're starting to find out that these things are a little more powerful. I'm getting something out of us that I didn't get before. And we're combining our own self-evaluations now in a stronger way, again, in a much, much stronger way. We're combining our self-evaluations with our evaluations of others. As we'll see later, evaluations of other becomes less important and evaluating ourself becomes more important. And self-evaluation in this journey is right up there with knowing what it is you want and getting your needs met. The only way you can do either of those things is to take a look at yourself and engage in some kind of self-evaluation. And we're beginning to feel a balance and experience some success in meeting our personal needs, we don't feel like we're all the time disconnected or out of balance or out of sync with the rest of the world. We're starting to come more in line with, all right, this is who I am, this is what I want to be, this is where I'm going, and we're feeling better. We're not quite there yet, but this is what we're trying to do. And finally, we have highest level of internal control. We're believing internal control is the most effective way. I can control myself. I don't need to worry about everybody else. We're using the caring, connecting habits to build our relationships without trying to control. Remember, the number one axiom is who can you control? Only yourself. So if we get out of the way of trying to control everybody else and make everybody else, get blamed for everybody else and say, all right, I can't fix that habit. I can only fix my habits. And as we start to do that, we start to feel better about ourselves. We self-evaluate. We try to help others self-evaluate. So other than finding criticism or finding fault with others, we try to ask questions in a way that helps them see where they're going, not to find fault, but to help them kind of do their own self-examinations. And in the end, we wind up having to be more in balance with one's needs and getting those needs met effectively. So that is our chart. And as you can see, it is a journey. We all come into it at this high level of external control. The reason that we all come into it at that level is because that's the way the world operates. Almost every organization, every governmental agency, every school operates on some level of external control. And it is very stifling, and it leaves us feeling very unsatisfied in the long run. You may get temporary control over a few things, but you will never have the kind of that internal control, that internal peace that you have when you adopt the notion that I am my own person, I'm in charge of my life, and so be it what the rest of the world is doing. But you can see how we've tried to map it out as a journey. And we want people to think about it as a journey. And we think about it in terms of choice theory language as being how much internal control versus external control. We think about our effective habits. We think about self-evaluating. We think about in some ways some planning and changing our behaviors, finding more effective ways to do things. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this presentation. I will in the next one when we talk about how you can actually start to move through this process, because time just doesn't allow in this particular setting to do all of that. But at any rate, changing your behavior, finding new strategies, and working on that continuous improvement. When you hit that high level of internal control, that's what you're doing. You're looking at yourself and you're saying, well, I didn't make it on this one. How am I doing? What do I need to fix? How can I fix this? I'm going to change the paradigm just a teeny bit here. I sometimes work with organizations, groups, boards in a strategic planning mode. And when organizations want to be strategic in how they move about, one of we'll ask a couple of questions. Number one is, what is it you really want? Is that familiar to everybody? What is it you really want? If you're in choice theory, what is it you really want? Organizations are no different than people. They really want things. Subject for a whole different discussion sometime, but I've actually kind of mapped out where organizations look like people in terms of they have their 5 needs and they're all the same. as individuals do. Well, what do you really want? So then I come back and say, okay, if that's what you really want, I start asking them some questions. Now, if it were reality therapy, I'd say, well, what could you do differently to get it, or whatever. But what I do in strategic planning is I ask the question, well, what obstacles do you have to overcome to get to that goal? What obstacles do you have to overcome to get to that goal? And that question has two critical points. First of all, it's sort of stated in the negative. We have to look at obstacles. Why can't I just figure out the things I need to do? Well, the things you need to do are the things that are stopping you from doing that. So you need to look at what's stopping you from doing that, number one. And number two, after you identify those obstacles, then you can pick them off and create a new plan. Planning, problem solving in choice theory. Amazing, isn't it? Kind of goes right in there. So if you're working at a high level of internal control, you're asking those questions. What is it I really want? And how can I change my behavior to get it? When I work with groups, it's not how can you change your behavior, but what obstacles do you have to overcome? What do you need to do to get there? And I know that in kind of in my own personal life, and I was making this point the other day, when I'm working on things, if it's not, I'm a putterer. I'm a retired guy who gets to putter all the time. And I have a little wood shop and I like to putter out there. So if things don't go the way I want them to go, I step back and say, this didn't go the way I thought it should go. What do I need to do, or what are my obstacles that I need to correct or overcome to make this go the way I want it to go? And a long time ago, I heard Dr. Glasser say that the greatest thing you can do is to solve a problem and run it out to its course and solve a problem, that your internal reward is far greater than anything else you'll ever get. So solving a problem is one of the most rewarding things you can do. Evaluating yourself, making yourself become more effective, making yourself become meeting your needs more effectively is the most rewarding thing you can do. And it all has cascading effects after that. Okay, I have one more slide. I told you, Sharon, this was going to be a small presentation. This is one at the Quality School. We've used this slide a lot in our presentations. It's made by Barnes Boffey, who is also a long time choice theory proponent. He came up with this, and it makes a lot of sense, and it sort of puts things in a little bit of perspective. So it's all about your mindset. It's all about what you're thinking. So if you're in a losing mindset, what are you thinking? What are you doing? How does your body feel about that? You know, what kind of physiological response does your body have? And what are your feelings? Okay. So when we're doing that self-evaluation and we're trying to get to that effective place where we're on that journey of becoming more internally driven, more internally motivated, what does it look like? So we've added now some kind of thought bubbles. If it's you're losing, you say things to yourself like, just like always, I won't be able to do this. So you have that losing mindset. I quit. Why bother? This won't work. I just can't do this. And you sigh and walk away. Your feelings, you feel depressed. You feel like you're a loser, like you can't do anything right. You feel like a failure. And in your physiology, when you're losing, you don't have a lot of energy. You sulk a lot. You're just down in the dumps all the time. On the other side, if you are in the journey side of things, you have thinking, doing, physiology, feelings, And you start to say things to yourself like, I've been learning, so I will probably do better in the future. I'm getting better. I'm not perfect. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm getting better. I'm practicing more. I'm getting feedback, and I'll keep trying. I'll try and try again. So I'm nervous and I'm excited to see that I can be successful. When you're trying and you're engaging in that self-evaluation and you're reorganizing your behaviors, taking on new behaviors, and you start to get a couple of hits where it works, you feel better, and that there's a cascade of positive feelings that you get. I know when I'm puttering in my workshop, famous line, I don't know who started it, but it's a famous line somewhere. Gee, I love it when a plan comes together. And I'm in there working in my workshop, and I plan it all out, and the plan is marvelous, and whatever it is I'm working on comes together and it works. And I feel really good about that. And in my physiology, my breathing is a little more fast paced. My face is serious with concentration. I'm really working hard, but it's a positive thing. It's not this negative down in the dumps depression sort of a thing. So kind of wrapping all this up, losing and winning, it's not a binary choice for us in choice theory. Sometimes, yeah, you have to be perfect. Sometimes you have to be right on the mark. But more often than not, you don't have to be perfect and on the mark. You've got wiggle room. You've got places, things that you can do to improve. And if you step back and look at that and say, all right, I need to do this differently the next time. I need to work on this. I need to change this. I need to do that. In the long run, you will feel much better about yourself, and you'll have more effective control. We just have to understand that this is not a simple process. It's a journey. It's a long time thing coming. I can tell you that in my own personal life, it took me quite a while. I was in education. I worked with delinquents, and you talk about the external control side of things. Work with delinquents who've been locked up. It doesn't get a whole lot more external control than that. And the whole justice system and our policing system is all set up on external control. And it took me a long time to reconcile that personally, and to get to a point where I wasn't going to buy into the external part of that. When I was working with delinquents, we worked actively to get them to be more internally motivated and to take control of their own behavior and so on and so forth. So it took me a long time to get to a point where I felt like this is really good, and we're really making it. So it is a journey, and this is a long journey. This is not a short journey at all. It's a long journey, and we have to be thoughtful about it, and we have to engage in it and really practice some piece of choice theory every day to get to that winning place. So that's the end of part one. Next week, we will look at some suggestions as to how you can change your mindset and reframe winning and losing and from a choice theory perspective. So I'm going to stop the share, and we'll throw it open to questions. Mona?
Well, thank you. That was wonderful. It was really, really good. I like your reflective questions. As a matter of fact, maybe we could go back to that and look at them for another second on the
Sure.
reflective questions. And then as you was giving the little changing from external control to internal control, it seems as though it is a step down and then a step up process. That as we begin to step down from trying to lord over others, we can step up to being a good leader, and we can begin to set an environment where they are willing to cooperate. And it's in that cooperation that that the other person begins to lose that internal control the external control to being internally controlled. So I especially like the third question down. Where do you get your greatest joy in the sense of accomplishment? As we can begin to, look at and realize that what's good for you.
Yeah, I kind of snuck that question in there. Because I started out with two negative kind of questions, and I realized, wait a minute, there's another side to this, and I want people to stop, and because we want to reframe. Where do you get your greatest sense of joy? One of, as Glasser says, and I know this to be true in my own personal life, some of my greatest sense of joy comes from, helping other people and helping solve problems. And I personally derive a lot of satisfaction from that.
Right, exactly. Where are you getting your greatest joy? And then, that can help you lessen that either or to being both and.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I have a quote from Paul Meyer, the founder of Success Motivation Institute. He says, if you are not making the progress you would like to make and are capable of making, it is simply because your goals are not clearly defined. And as we begin to look at those, what is it we want? What is it we really want? I like the way you brought that out and really emphasized that. So thank everyone for being here. We're going to close the information segment down, and then we will talk with one another and get comments and input. So thank you, and we'll close.